Hey guys, it's Maymay, and today we are altering this composition book using the Graceful paper from Mintay. And the reason is I want a gratitude journal, and I don't mean a gratitude journal like for 2021 or for the next 6 months. I want one that is just my gratitude journal, and it could take me years to fill it up. Like, I don't want to make a new one all the time for this particular topic, so that's why I chose to use a composition book. I feel like I can use this one for years and years and years. Now, before we get started, I want to tell you that I'm going to be literally remaking an album that I did years ago for a composition book swap I participated in. I want to say 5 years ago. I'm going to link that video for you guys. Y'all still watch it to this day and ask me to recreate that album, and I've never done it. So today we're doing it. All right, so with the Mintay paper, this Graceful is so stunning. Let me open it up. The minute I saw it, I knew it was the pack I wanted to make my gratitude album with. And I love all these images that we're going to be able to use. They're so beautiful. I'm going to set those to the side. And as with any album, as with anything I do, I like to go through the paper pack first and pick out my cover, something I want to be on the cover. Because if I don't, I find that I will accidentally cut it and use it somewhere inside the book, and I don't want to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and pick my cover. I'm really feeling strong about this image right here. I think that is so beautiful, and I just think her sitting on this edge like this for a gratitude journal would just be so lovely. I just think that it would. So I'm really feeling strong about that, and I'm going to look through and make sure that's the one I want. I considered this one where she's sitting to this side and looking this way, but the closure I'm putting on my book, I don't think will work as well. I think it'll kind of cover her up and be kind of wasted, so I'm not going to use that piece. So this is the one I'm going to use. The first thing I need to do is measure my cover, and this works with any composition book. By the way, I've linked this one in the description. I get these on Amazon in a pack of, I want to say 6 or 10. I can't remember, but I've linked them in the description for you if you can't find them. I can find them in my store, but I just like this one. It's it's got a good binding, and it's stitched. The paper on the inside is stitched. I don't know if they're all that way. I've had some before that aren't like this, but you see how it's like it's stitched in, and I really think that's super cool for holding out for a long time instead of just being glued in. Okay, so let's start here. I'm not covering my binding. This is another thing I like about this particular composition book. This is a fabric covered binder strip right here, and I don't want to cover that up because it's nice and sturdy, and it will give my composition book more life. If I use the paper ones that go all the way to the edge, they don't work as well. I like this. So I'm only going to go from that edge to the outer edge. So I want to measure, and this is giving me just over 6.5, like a little tiny bit over 6.5 on this side. And then for height, it is giving me just at 9 3/4. Now, if you read your book, it says 9 3/4 by 7.5, and obviously we're taking an inch off, but sometimes that is not exactly accurate. So please measure before you cut your paper. These guys are cut, by machines, and sometimes they can be slightly off. So I'm going to cut my paper just slightly over 6.5 by 9 3/4. The first thing I'm going to do is cut this little branding strip off. Now, normally I would go and measure 12 inches and trim it like I've shown you guys before. But here, I'm not as worried about that because I'm going to use every bit of this paper. I don't need it for a 12 by 12 project necessarily. So if it's a little bit more than 12 by 12, it's fine. Look how cute. You still have that the graceful word right there if you want to use that. I'll put that to the side. And now I want to cut this slightly over 6.5. So let's see, 6.5 and slightly over, about like that. I'm checking and rechecking, but that looks good. So we're going to make that slice. Look how beautiful she is. And that Mintay just makes covers easy because it's all there for you. You could fussy cut her out and then layer her on top of this purple. That would be beautiful too. And then by 9 3/4. But when I do the 9 3/4, I'm going to put the picture I want on the cover in this section and make sure I'm cutting from the top, not the bottom. I don't want to cut my image off. It's going to cut some of that window out, but that's not really a big deal. Or that door, it's not really a big deal. It just looks like we've kind of zoomed in on her photo there. So this is going to live here just like that. Isn't that going to be beautiful for a gratitude journal? And I still can go back and add things or whatever. I just think it's going to be gorgeous. Now, normally I would use a full sheet of sticky tape for this. They come in full sheets. You stick it on the back and you use this for the cover. But a lot of you guys have told me you don't have that. And like, you'll ask me sometimes, what's my other option? Let me show you. Any tape you have, the reason I like to use tape is because you want to get to the very edge of the paper. It's not really, you think you need to glue every single bit of this down to the cover to keep it still. That's not really the case. The issue is, over time, anywhere the edges of your full sheet of cardstock that we're covering the book with are, they're gonna lift if you don't glue them directly down. Now, can you do this with wet glue? You can, but you just cannot get to every single edge like you can with the sticky tape. And that's why I like to use it for this. So I'm going to do this one more side, and then I'm going to show you what I'm going to do in the middle. So, and just look, I can literally make like a barrier with this tape, and I'm getting exactly to the edge. And I know that all the corners of this are going to be glued down. Now what I do on the inside, and you don't have to cover every little bit. I like to cover every bit, and in a perfect world I would do that, but I just want to show you guys, if you don't have full sheets, just use your sticky tape. So I just run this down. It's a little bit difficult with the pattern. And I just give myself a good covering of it. You just want it to stay down, right? And it will. You don't have to worry too awful much. So I'm going to do this and then one more. This might feel like overkill. I won't do this much on the inside of the book, but this, like I told you, I want this book to last me a long, long time. So for the outside, I'm going to do it that way. Then I'm just going to rub this down. You can come back with your block and do it like this on every piece. You don't really have to. And now I'm going to get my pokey tool because I want to peel all these back. Okay, so I'm going to start by peeling the middles, just like so. Notice how I'm keeping, I'll show you, because you can get your whole hand in this. I'm keeping my hand over here, and I just extend the pokey tool out. I don't really put my hand on top, and then where I can't reach, just turn it around. I know that sounds silly, but I promise you, I have made these before and stuck them to my arm completely, but I have learned. All right, now we'll do these edges. So we'll peel that one away. I'm going to turn it, and you can grab where the other tape is, or where there's no tape even, and then turn it again. And then two more pieces. Now, if you are nervous about this holding your cover on, if you think you need to add a little more, just now take your wet glue and run it between your sticky tape, and it'll give you even more hold. I have plenty of tape on here. Plenty. But you could totally add a little wet glue if you wanted to. All right, so here's our book. And now here's the fun part. Here's what I like to do. I like to line up one corner and one edge. So I'm going to line up this corner with my binding strip. I'm not squishing it down yet. And then I'm lining up this edge, okay? And I'm just sort of driving this in. Take your time. So now I've got a nice flush edge at the bottom, a nice flush edge to the side. And this is stuck down every edge, which I love. Now, you're going to notice when you open it that you're going to have some little bits hanging over. This is where I use my little knife blade, and I trim that away. And fortunately, you can just use the book as your guide. But I want you to do something. Keep these hands back. If you put your hands over the edge, that blade's going to get you. So keep your hand out of the way while you're doing this. And you can certainly do this with scissors. You do not have to do this with a blade. More passes, less pressure gets you a better cut. So I am going to use my scissors for this corner, and I'm going to use these that are kind of non-stick because remember we put adhesive all the way to the edge, and so there's a little bit of adhesive on there, and I don't really want that to gunk up my cutter bees. So that's why I use those. All right, now let's look and see. It looks like I have another little bit here I need to trim. And this is the end that I corner rounded myself, and it's not really that bad, but this composition book happens to be dented where someone dropped it or something on the corner, and now it is just right. So you can see we got the cover all nicely done, but do you see that little bit of composition book that's showing? Don't worry about that. We're going to do some inking in a little bit, so it'll be fine. We'll cover all that up. Now what I want to do is cover the inside, okay? You can totally go ahead and do the back. The back is done exactly the same, but I'm going to do that off camera and just let you guys catch up with me. So I want to show you what I'm doing on the inside before I go there. So here's the thing about the inside. You're going to be tempted, and this is not the paper I'm using, I'm just using it as an example. You're going to be tempted to want to butt this paper all the way inside to this, to the binding to cover up the cover. But here's what I need to caution you about. You need to come out about 1/4 of an inch from there, because we don't want to build bulk in here, and we don't want to press against the stitches of our composition book. You might think it would make it stronger to do that, but it really does kind of weaken it because it pushes on those stitches over time. So you're going to come out about 1/4 of an inch, all right? It really doesn't even have to be 1/4 of an inch. I'm going to show you how I decide how far to come out. So I take my ruler, and because I like to cut on even measures, so like 7, 7 1/4, 7 1/2, like that, not 8s, here's what I do. I lay my ruler down on an even number. So this is 7 1/4, and look, that's less than 1/4 of an inch I'm leaving, but that's enough for what I want, and I can cut at an even number, and that's what I like to do. So I'm going to do 7 1/4 wide, and again, measure, 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 because you'll be surprised, it'll be off. Like this one right here, measuring from the inside, is not quite 9 3/4, so I'll probably have a little bit to trim off. So 7 1/4 by 9 3/4 is what I want for the inside. Now, I'm going to be using this side for my inside cover. I know you're thinking, but you're covering up that pretty little girl. I am, but I've already used the girl. I don't want her to be a focal point throughout the album. The cover is plenty for me. So now I'm just going to glue it down just like I did the front cover. Now, when placing this inside, I do the same thing. I'm going to line up to 2 edges, and I'm just going to run those edges first. So I've got my base nice and lined up. And now I'm going to pay attention to the outer edge over here and press that down. Look how pretty that purple is on the inside. It's funny, I'm not really a purple fan, but I'm really liking this. Really liking it. All right, now we're going to trim the edges again. Now for the back of my book, I've decided to use this piece, and I know that the keys are going sideways, but I'm going to be adding a strip across here that is a band that closes my book, so those won't show anyway, but I want the florals. I think they'll be pretty, so I'm going to put this down that way. What I usually do on the back of one of my albums, of any of them, is I use my least favorite page in the book, and to be honest, this page I'm putting the adhesive on right now is my least favorite in the pack. So I was going to use it, and then I thought, when I flipped it over to put the tape on, I was like, oh, mystery page, look how beautiful that is. Like, I did not know it was going to look that beautiful when I cut it, so I decided to use the floral side instead. So just play. Whatever is pleasing to your eye is what you should put there. You don't have to follow any rules. There are no rules in this kind of thing. You are altering a book in the style you want. The trick is, I'm going to tell you what I have learned over time. If you like the way it looks, you will enjoy it, and you will think you've done a good job. I have made these before where I'm like, I didn't really like that, but I went with it because I thought I needed to. And truth of the matter is, those never turn out to be my favorites. The ones that are my favorites are the ones where I'm like, ooh, I like the way that looks. Whether it should be there or not, I like it. All right, so let's glue the back down, and then we're going to do the inside cover. So the back, just the same as every other cover we've done. I'm going to line this up to the bottom and to the binder. So I'm paying attention over here to line this up correctly, like so, and then I can press it down, and we'll trim off any excess. Look how beautiful. Oh, Mintay, Mintay. The paper is just stunning. So here we go, guys. Check this out. I've done my front cover, my inside, and then I went ahead and did the back, the very same as the inside, and then I showed you doing the back cover. Now what I want to show you is making pockets. So on the inside covers, I want 2 large pockets, and I want one to go here and then one to go here. And I got to show you something. When I cut away this page to use on the back, it was on the back side, it left me with this. Look how beautiful this is. I want this to be a pocket right here. And what I want to do is pay attention to what I want to show on the pocket. And I think I love this. Like, I love that piece right there. Or you could do this. This is the hard part, is deciding what pieces you want to show. That's pretty too, though. I may do this because I can use that for something else. I'll show you. So what I'm going to do is take this strip just as it is, and I'm going to cut it to be my pocket. So let's see. I know I need it to be 7 1/4 wide because that's how wide I did my cover piece in there. So let's go this way. Now pay attention. Remember, I want to cut this away. I want to use this. So I'm going to go put this at 7 1/4 and then make my cut. And that way, this I can use for something else. I'll put that aside, and then this can go into the book. Now this may be a little tall for what I want. Let's look. Now that I've got it cut to the right size, it is a little tall. That takes up a lot of page there. So I think I'm going to bring this down, and I'm going to trim it to where I can still tell that that's a table, but I want to take some of that space there off. So let's just put it in the trimmer. Now this is where you're not going to be able to like use my measurements necessarily, just kind of the technique. See how I've just kind of cut that down? And I can tell you what size it is though, just to let you know in case you're interested. Oh, well, it's 4 7/8. See what I mean? Like, we don't want to work in 7/8. But if you do it by eye, sometimes that's going to happen. Okay, so now we've got our little pocket piece cut, and this is how easy this is. Now, you could glue this straight in right now, and I think I will. I considered doing a border punch along the top, and I do want to do some border punching in this album, but the issue is, if you border punch across the top, it weakens your pocket, like when you're sliding stuff in and out, and it just kind of can, over time, kind of wear that. So I'm going to leave that nice and flush. But here's how I'm going to glue this into place. I'm going to use some wet glue. And I'm going to make sure that I put my hand at the top of the pocket, and I'm going to glue down 3 sides. So I'm just going to go just like this around the edge, the bottom, and the side. Now here's a tip. I want you to pay attention to this, okay? When you're gluing this down, put it into place at the bottom. That's fine. And then on the sides, when you glue those down, give them a little pinch in the middle, just a tiny pinch. What that does is it lifts that middle there, so when you're sliding paper in and out, it doesn't catch. I mean, it is a tiny pinch. You see how I just kind of pushed that center in? And let me show you the difference. If you don't do that, it's nice and flat, but if you do that, see how easy I can slide in and out of there? Exactly. Now, I do not expect to have a lot of things to put in the pockets over the years, so I don't mind this being just a flat pocket. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you in the front cover another way to make a pocket. So if you don't love this pocket, if this is too flat for you, you'll have another option in the front. All right, so I'm going to let that dry, and then I'm going to need to trim right here where that hangs off a tiny bit around that corner, that curved edge. So that is my back pocket. So easy, right? All right, let's go to the front. Now, let's say you would rather have pockets that have a little more give, a little more space in them. Let me show you how I would do one here at the front. So let me find the piece that I want to be my pocket. So I'm looking at these pieces that I've already cut away. Like this is a piece that I use for something else. And I know that it's supposed to go in this direction, but windows can go this way too. So I think I'm going to use this piece. So here's the deal. It's even the right height for me. Look, I won't even have to cut any off, so that's a bonus. Here's the deal. I want to create side gussets for this pocket. I do not want to gusset for the bottom. I'll tell you why. If I put a gusset in the bottom, it lets my album get thick, too thick. I don't know how to explain that, but it gets too thick. So I'm going to glue the bottom flat down, but the sides are going to be gusseted. So here's what that means. When I cut this piece 7 1/4 to cover this, I need to add a fold down on either edge. So I'm going to do 7 1/4 plus a 1/2 inch on one side and a 1/2 inch on the other. Now, if you're adding a 1/2 inch to 2 sides, you're adding an inch. Does that make sense? I think it does. So instead of 7 1/4, we're going to cut this to 8 1/4. Now you're like, that was overkill. You didn't have to tell us all that. I think I did, because I want you to be able to do this in the future. I want you to be able to come back and design your own albums using those thought processes. Okay, so 8 1/4. Oh, but remember, we want to design our pocket, right? So what I'm going to do is trim away some of this. Let's trim away this section at the end down here, which is just the branding strip. Let's start with that. And then I think I'll turn this in here and do 8 1/4 like this. Yeah, and then we will see what we get. It can be a mystery pocket, right? All right, oh, you know what? While I got this little trimmer out, we'll do our scoring here. We're going to need to score the ends, all right? So I need to score 1/2 inch on either side to create that gusset. So I'm going to lay this into my trimmer, and using my score tool, I'm just going to score that 1/2 inch in. Good. And then I'm going to score it 1/2 inch in on the other side. Now I'm going to fold these in and crease them down. And this is going to be what gives me a little more room at the top. All right. We still need to do a couple things to this to make this work really well. So hang on. Now I want to explain it. When you do a gusset like this, do you see how much bulk we've built at the top? If you don't do the little trick I'm fixing to show you, when you're trying to put things into it, it will catch on those pieces that are glued behind. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to do some angle cuts. At the top, we're going to go from the score mark out and do an angle cut to get rid of some of that bulk and to help pages slide in and out much easier. These are things you have to trust me, I've learned over time. It's just one of those moves you need to make. So I've done my little angle cuts at the top. Notice how they're completely different. It doesn't matter. They're not going to show. Now, because of the way I'm gluing the bottom down, I don't want to add any bulk here either. So I'm going to do angle cuts at the bottom as well. Is this just a method to my madness situation, maybe? I don't know. It may be more. It is overkill, honestly. It's just something I've learned over time, kind of a best practice situation. All right, so let's bring this guy over, and we're going to glue this in. But before we do, I'm going to do a walkthrough. So these guys will fold in, okay? The gussets will get glued down on the side, like so. But the bottom is just going to get glued directly down. So our pocket will come open, but it won't come open. There we go. That's how I'm going to describe it. All right, so let's put glue on our flap. Glue on our flap. And then you want to make sure you're doing the bottom and put glue down the bottom. All right, so let's place this guy in. I'm using way too much glue. I need to change the tip on my bottle. That tip is when I was doing, I was gluing down some sequins the other day and I was using more glue than usual. And I haven't changed it back. I need to. All right, so I'm gluing the gussets down, gluing the bottom down. I will have a tiny bit to snip off right here, but it's not going to make a difference. If you glue that down really well on the bottom, your pocket's still going to be glued down. So this is to give you a little more space, and you'll see that it easily slides in. And even on the edges, it slides in. See how I'm even forcing that? If you don't do that angle cut, it kind of stops pages, but this works well. All right, I'm going to trim this little excess piece away. It's the tiniest little sliver, and it won't affect a thing. So make sure that's down. All right, so 2 different pocket options for you. Now let's talk about this page. So in my previous book that I'm copying, I turned this into a pocket. I took 4 pages, okay, and I made this pocket. And I'm going to show you how I did it. It's been a long time, but I'm going to try to do it from memory, just right here with you watching me do it, okay? So this first page, I took and I folded down to that red line. You see that? I went to the red line, okay, and I creased this down to it. And when you do that, you get this little fold, all right? That's 2 pieces of paper because I want it to be 2 thicknesses here. Now I'm going to take 2 pieces of paper on the other side and do the same thing. If you take more than 2, it won't matter. It just makes it sturdier. And I'm going to come back and fold it to that red line. Oh, I do have a lot more than 2 pieces here. Gosh, I had 4 pieces. Okay, so now I have 2. So I'm going to fold this down to that red line. Let that red line be my guide. And I'm going to do this. I'm making for myself an angled pocket. Okay, so see how that's now angled? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come inside here and I'm going to glue this shut. Now I'm just going to use some wet glue, and I got to be careful because I got, like I said, I've got the wrong tip on here. So I'm just going to glue this down. Just going to scratch some glue on there. I'm going to glue this little angle down. So you're going to have to glue a couple pages here because you're gluing 1, but remember we folded this over twice. So I need to do this one as well. All this is doing is building stability. This is what this is doing. All this extra gluing that we're adding in here, it's just making things sturdier. So there's that one, okay? And now I'm going to do the other side the same. I ended up with 3 pages over here. I didn't realize it. But now those are glued down. Now look how bad they look. Like you can see the glue. That's never going to matter. You're never going to see that. You just want it there for stability. Now what we want to do is we want to glue this to be a pocket. And here's how we do it. We're going to glue this bottom and up. But remember, we have multiple pages. So I'm going to open this up and I'm going to open this like so, and I'm just going to run right here and glue these together. So put some glue in there. Remember, it won't matter if the glue shows through. We're covering all of this working up. So I've got that glue down, and now I need to glue these guys together at the bottom as well. You can see why I'm using wet glue. Sticky tape would be too much work right here. Too much work. So I'm just getting this glued together. And on this side I had 3 pages, so I got to do one more in here. Okay, so now our pocket will stay together. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to add glue here and here. That's the only place we need to glue. So 2 sides. So we're going to put glue here and along the bottom. This is literally how I made my last one. Now look, I'm not going too far into the crease, okay? I don't want to push into the binder necessarily. And then I'm going to bring this over. I'm going to glue this together. And all this glue is going to make a nice sturdy pocket. Believe it or not, it will. All of it, it will be so pretty when we're done. You won't even see all of our workings. It'll be so nice and so neat. All right, so what we should do is probably let this page kind of sit and dry a little bit because it's pretty wet with all our glue. And if you want another pocket like this, go ahead and build one somewhere else in the book. I'm not going to do another pocket just yet, and I'll tell you why. You can add these at any time. You're just using the pages and making these pockets, so we can add them anytime, anywhere we go. All right, so let me put my pen back in my glue and we'll keep working. So in my last book, I added some little places to put tags in here. I had a journaling spot and a place for a tag. I'm going to do the same thing here, and I'm going to show you. I have this scrap piece, and this pink would be so pretty on here. And I know it's going to cover up some of the flowers, but that's kind of part of the kind of shabby chic look of it. But I want to put this in. And actually, my tag pulled out sideways, so I might do it that way as well. So we're going to need to make a little pocket to hold that tag. So I need to decide how big I want my tag to be. I think I want my tag about 2 inches. I think just a 2-inch tag is enough, which means I really just need this to be slightly over 2 inches wide and have a gusset to turn back. So let's do that real quick. So if I want a 1/2 inch gusset, so that's 1 inch, 2 inches for my tag, so that makes 3 inches, and I'm gonna add 1/8. So 3 1/8. And the reason for that is I want to have a little room for my tag to slide in and out. So 3 1/8 inches for my gusset. Now I want to score 1/2 inch and 1/2 inch on either side of this. So I'll just put this here. I'm a big fan of the 1/2 inch gusset because I think it gives you more space to glue. 1/4 inch just won't hold it in place long term, at least not for me. All right, so there's those little, that's my little piece that's going to be my gusset. We got to trust the process here, right? So let's fold this down and fold this down. And now what I'm going to do is take and do my little angle corners. And I'm going to try something else I think you guys will like. In my previous book, there was a time when I was a close to my heart representative years and years and years and years ago. And in that book, I used some pre-made little tags that they had. They were actually little pockets that the tag slid in and out of. And it had these little cute little edges right here. I want to see if I can mimic that myself. Let's just see. So I'm thinking if I take my 2-inch scallop punch and this piece and put it in and line this punch right to the edge. Let's see if I can do this from eyeball. And just kind of take out a slice. Let's see. This may not be centered. That's not bad. It's not bad. It kind of looks like a bite, actually. But that's okay. That might not be perfect, but you'll see what I'm doing in just a second. So I have this other piece that might make my tag. Let's see if I can get 2 inches out of this. So you're probably like, what are you making? Hang on, you'll see. All right, cut my little strip away. And can I get 2 inches out of this? I sure can. So I'm going to cut a 2-inch piece here. And now how wide did I make this little double bite pocket? I made it 3 3/4. So I want this guy to be 3 3/4. This is going to be the tag that slides in and out of there. Okay. And you're like, what do you need a tag like that? I don't know. I might want a journal on it. I might want to put a photo on it. So this guy is going to slide in and out when I put it in the book, just like that. Won't that be cute? It's just a little extra something. So we need to poke a hole here and put a ribbon on it or a string. Okay, for these pieces, I want to show you how I will do this. This is going to be a little different than the one I did before, but I've learned some things since then too. I don't want to put cardstock in here. In my first album, I ran cardstock all the way in, and that's not good. I need this to stay like it is. So these pieces I'm going to cover, I need to cover them from the red line out. So if I do that, I'm looking at 6.5 inches this way, okay? So here's how I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna go ahead and cut myself a piece 6.5 inches and just let it be 12 inches, and I'll show you how I do the angle. So I want this stripe to be my folder. So from the red line to the edge of the page is the 6.5 inches. I'm going to line this guy up nice and straight, and then I'm gonna take a pencil and trace my angle. So I'm just gonna go just like that. And that will give me the angle piece I need to cut for my pocket. So let's get our trimmer out and do that cut. Anytime you're doing angle pieces, you definitely want to sink your blade, okay? So you're going to put this into your trimmer like so. And see how I'm not worried about the top or the bottom? I want to be able to have that whole line on my cut line. Then I'm going to take my blade and sink it in the middle and go up and then down. And the reason for that is I get a much sharper point. If you try to pull down on an angle, sometimes this will wrinkle up on you, and you don't want that to happen. All right, back to our album. We're making good progress. I guess doing it the second time is faster. I remember that album taking me a really long time, which is one reason I didn't really want to do it. I didn't want to redo it. But this one's going faster. All right, so this is going to get glued in. At the top, I'm going to have to trim a tiny bit away. No big deal. Now, I used all that wet glue here, and that's fine. I don't want to use wet glue this time. I want this to be in with some dry glue so I don't add more wrinkles. So I'm going to take this piece, and I'm going to run my adhesive all the way around there. Plus, I get this glued all the way to the edge. Remember how we want to cover all the edges that we can. So I'm going to do that way. Then I'm going to bring it back at the bottom, just like so, and then up the sides. Then in here, I'm going to add more. Lots of adhesive on these kinds of things because they are going to get used. They're not just laying in there for looks. There's not something else holding them in. You know, you're going to be opening and closing those pockets. Okay, and you can see how I've kind of hung over the edges with some of my adhesive. Don't stress about that. Let me show you what you do. Like down here at the bottom, I'll peel this away. And where that hangs over, I'll just fold it back on itself. So I'm not really wasting it. I'm still using it. All right, we are ready to put this inside here, just like so. All right, again, I'm going to pay attention to two corners from that red line out. And I will do my trimming of the rounded part later. I'm going to press this down. And this is where all of that yucky glue goes away. All that wet glue we did on the inside just completely goes away. All right, so see how we have this nice clean pocket? Do the very same thing to the back, but do the opposite side, and we'll get right back together. So look right here with our folder. See how it's poking out? You might not can see it. Let me lift that up. It's square where my book is round. What I want to do is just trim that away. So I'm just going to take my scissors and just do it like that. Just trim that around. It's like we're trimming cuticles or something. So just get that corner trimmed. And then I'm going to go to the top and see if that point is hanging out, and it is. And so I'm going to snip that point just a little bit here at the top. Let me hold this up where I can get to it. Snip those little points away. And I want to show you something. I got a little bit off right here. Do you see how I got just a tiny bit? Let me see if I can pull it back where you can see it. See where I'm a tiny bit off? It's just a little bit. You might not can see it, but I'm just going to take my X-Acto or my finger blade here, and I'm just going to run down here and cut that even. Just carefully. We're just going to hide that little mistake that I made. No big deal. it's impossible to get these things to lay out just perfect. So you kind of get used to having to make trims here and there. All right. Now, let's see what we have created. So if I open this guy up and we look, we have now created this huge pocket, right? This is awesome for putting all kinds of things in. Now, here's what I'm going to tell you. This is going to be part 1 of the video, and I'll tell you why. You've got some work to do to get yourself to this point, okay? And if you want to add more than one of these pockets, you want to go ahead and do that now too. And I may add one more in here. We'll see. But go ahead and get yourself to this point. The video is probably short, but this has kind of been a little time consuming for me to get this all done. When we come back, here's what we're going to do. We're going to create the closure that I want. We're going to create some tags to go inside of all of our pockets. And we're going to do some stamping on the pages, which I think is just so cute. And it just adds another step. And we're going to grunge up the edge of this guy. All right. So thanks so much for being here for part 1 of our gratitude journal. I just think this is going to be super fun. I think you're going to enjoy the process. So get yourself a composition book. Get yourself caught up to where I am. And in part 2, which will be on Tuesday, you can keep going and finish this guy out. These make great gifts, guys. If you want to give somebody something that they're just like, what? This is so cool. They're going to love this. All right. Thanks so much for being here. You know the deal. Subscribe. Don't miss a video. As long as you're subscribed and you click that little notification bell, it lets you know when my next video comes up. The next one for this one will be on Tuesday at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. And you know I want to see what you're doing. If you're working on one of these, share it with me, guys. Share it in our customer gallery at maymaymadeit.com or on our Discord. Thanks so much for being here. And until next time, bye now.